And a warm welcome once again to our audience all around the world to this episode of our Telos podcast. Once again, a quick reminder, Telos really talks about the reason for being. It's Greek for that, and the French would call it the raison d'être. So through this podcast that we put out, we are hoping that you, the audience, would be able to capture from the stories that we bring beautiful principles of the kingdom worldview that we are trying to bring out. And with me today, of course, is my co-host, Mario. Mario, would you say hi, Mario?
Hey everyone, it's so wonderful to have you guys here back on the Telos podcast. Now, today's episode, we have a wonderful, inspiring individual. His name is Kevin Sutantyo from a partner at Sovereign Capital, a PE fund. So we'll just have Kevin to give us a quick introduction of himself, and then we'll just kick off the entire podcast. Kevin, please, bro.
Hi, Sherman, Mario. Thank you all for having me. It's really great to be here today, and I look forward to our conversation. In terms of introduction, I'm the partner of Sovereign's Capital. We're an early stage venture capital fund looking to invest in faith-driven startups. So I think this is something that makes us different from the rest of the market. We're looking to come alongside men and women who not only want to make interesting, impactful startups, but one that do so that give glory to God. Bit of my origin story is that I'm an engineer by education, which I believe gives me a good problem-solving mentality. I've had experience working in large companies. I've had experience working in a small company that I eventually took over. This experience, I think, was really interesting because I've never taken a company from 0 to 1. So I don't have that wonderful story that some of the other partners in the firm do, where they've had a wonderful exit. My experience in running a company is that I probably received it at 1 and I didn't take it to 10. When I handed back the company, it was probably at 0.7. And so I say this because I do know firsthand how difficult it is to be an entrepreneur. I've been in the operational role for about 4 years, led the company and myself for about 2. And so I know what it's like to spend your every waking hour about how to move the firm forward, how to think of new ideas, how to lead it in times of crisis, putting in your own money just to make ends meet. So this experience, when I was going through it, I obviously was not happy about it. I didn't see how this would help me at all, because I thought that I was going to triple the sales of this company and then go back to my friends and show them all how talented I was. I can only see now, looking back on it, that this experience really, really helped me because it makes me a better investor. When I sit on boards, when I advise companies that I don't have a stake in, I know what it's like to be in that role, and I'm not going to be that investor or advisor or friend that just comes along, criticizes, poops all over your company and your ideas, and then fly away. That's not who I am. That's not what Sovereigns is looking to do.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. Really appreciate that introduction. And there's so much in that introduction that you've just given us, right? I mean, it's tough being an entrepreneur, not any much easier being a VC, a venture capitalist, I believe, right? And you've chosen to join Sovereigns, which is a faith looking for people in the faith, right? Men and women who are in the faith, to encourage them. That's an even tougher, I would say, job than just a general VC, right? So why did you? I mean, do you like being in pain? Do you like difficult times, or what really drives you to make crazy decisions like this?
That's a great question, Sherman, and I appreciate you asking that. And and as a friend, I know You're asking the right and excellent questions. So my origin story with sovereigns was because, so after my operational experience, I actually somewhat abandoned that company, and I ended up at a brokerage firm, similar to our friend Mario here. However, in Indonesia, I wouldn't say that it is not opaque, but it's just that sometimes all transactions in the Indonesian public market, uh, I would say, could be desired in terms of levels of transparency, you could say. So I believe that after a failed entrepreneur attempt, working in an industry that can be difficult for one's faith, I was quite jaded in working out here. So I met Luke Rausch, the founder of Sovereign's Capital, in church. He lived in Jakarta from 2013 to 2015 or so. And it was our pastor who introduced us. I remember very clearly, it was in the back of a restaurant where Luke and the other founders of Sovereign stood up and they gave the origin story and said that we are a faith-driven fund who want to invest in companies with founders who want to run their companies according to biblical principles. So I quickly put up my hand and I said that this sounds great, guys. I think that this is going to work where you guys are from, but this is Indonesia and you don't know how business is done here. So I believe that your thesis sounds a bit naive. I literally used that word, naive. So fast forward, I think what really changed me, I became an advisor right away. Those guys are great, right? Even someone who is trying to poke holes in their thesis, because of my background, and I had been doing angel investments since around 2010. They asked me, would you advise us on deals and help us understand the landscape? So that's what really changed my mind, and what really changed my heart is that I saw sovereigns deploy into founders that were the real deal. I met them, and when you talk about unicorn companies, it's not only about valuations, it's about values too. So meeting these men and women who really did want to run their companies according to biblical principles, that really, really made me decide that I wanted to do this more full time. And so here I am today.
Kevin, I've got a whole bunch of questions for you. I'm going to try and keep it to two at the start. Can we, you ended by saying that naturally you guys invest in companies that are faith-driven, that hold biblical principles. Can we go a little bit deeper in terms of, on sovereign side, right? What are kind of like some of the principles and values you guys hold to, and how does that dovetail to the kind of companies you guys search for? Meaning to say, is it anyone who just says, oh, we're a company that deals with faith, hope, and love, and you guys invest in them? So the question is essentially the values and principles that Sovereign holds, and how does that dovetail into what you guys zoom in on the entities that you guys invest in?
That's a great question, Mario. We get this all the time. And so we are a venture capital firm. And so I would still say that one of our primary objectives is to have the excellent fiduciary duty to our investors and to provide them an at market or better financial return. And so we are looking for also excellent early stage companies that we believe can scale. So it is not something that we are a ministry looking to do the work of the Lord through technology. I think that there's some really excellent groups that are doing that already. But one of our witnesses, as well as what we believe the witnesses of the companies that we invest in, is excellence. None of us want to go out in the market and have that reputation that because there is a faith component attached to it, that it is lesser than what is out there. And I know from both of your backgrounds, in business, that you both do that. Your companies that you run, you seek to be excellence, you seek to win in the marketplace. And that would show people, right, that it's not just oh, this is a Christian company, so I should lower my expectations. And that shouldn't be that way. That it's running a faithful company as well as having a financial return should not be mutually exclusive. So I think that's one thing we're looking for. We're looking for excellence, ability to scale. Generally with us, we're looking for a technology component. I think another that we're looking for is culture. And I would say every company, public markets, nonprofits, early stage companies, they will all say that we are looking to make an excellent company culture because culture wins. At the end of the day, what is better than a God-honoring culture? Because when you treat people, your people that work for you, as if they are someone made in the image of God, they will turn around and care for your customers. We are all part of this trying to fix something that's broken, of that old mentality, right? Of I'm a boss, I'm looking to squeeze every penny out of my employee. And then on the flip side, when you work for someone and you feel that you're being taken advantage of, all right, well, I'm just going to bring this stapler home. I'm going to print my 500-page book on the company printer because, well, this is my way of getting back what I deserve. I think that as believers, we are all part of fixing this broken relationship in the marketplace. And by understanding that people are made in the image of God, this is something that we look for in our companies, and to make an excellent, winning, and God-honoring culture.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And Kevin, it's as you talk about this topic of culture, it's fascinating because just yesterday I wrote to my team, and actually I was writing for my blog, but I wrote this to my team first to make sure that I got no grammar and spelling mistakes, But I wrote on this whole thing about graciousness because we were experiencing a situation in our company where an external kind of stakeholder, or well, not stakeholder, but an external partner was kind of making some accusations, and I thought through a lot about different things, and this topic of graciousness came in, and I thought, what a great way to re-emphasize or to bring in strength this topic of graciousness into the culture of the company, and so I was writing about it, trying to get the definition of graciousness, and at the end of the day, I asked myself, why is it important to be gracious? In the culture, right? It's good to know the definition. It's good to know it's good, but really, why is it important? So, because I wanted the team to understand the consequence of graciousness within the culture of the company, and of course, as you mentioned, Kevin, outwardly towards our stakeholders as well. And so, I really couldn't understand it, and you're in tech, so I decided to ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave me this whole thing, and I thought it was really good. I say, So watch out for that block. But I think culture is such a important thing, because as children of the living God, actually, one thing about graciousness I've learned is that, it actually, a person being gracious speaks about the person's upbringing, or in the definition, it calls the person's breeding. I mean, that's kind of a not a great word for humans, but it suffice to say it means upbringing. And as a child of God, I would want to, at least if I'm not there yet, even I would want to be brought up in a gracious way so that I would represent God well. And I think that's something that companies would benefit to represent, because there are actually, according to ChatGPT, good benefits of having a gracious culture. And maybe, Kevin, if you could share with us a little bit more in details of some of perhaps the challenges that that you face, the difficult ones that you face, maybe especially in recent times, because some companies, did not survive the pandemic. Some companies did. Some companies are still, there are some permanent damage, let's just say, right? And now, I guess, with the tech and crypto winter, we really don't know what that looks like, right? But maybe could you share with our audiences as an encouragement, also as a learning point, some of these practical stories that you might have encountered in the last 6 months or 12 months?
Okay, no, great question. And I'm glad you're using ChatGPT. That should help you with your grammar and spelling as well. um, let's see. I think it's no secret that in these past, 6 months and even further than that, that it's been a turbulent time for the tech industry. If funding has dried up, you know, it's like we're long past the days of where there's just been almost zero interest rates, so money is not flowing through all sectors, early stage startups included, as they were previously. And so, therefore, I believe that people that were looking to raise capital at sometimes at uh, valuations that is just would be a lot more difficult to achieve with the metrics that they just haven't been able to hit because they just didn't have enough time. I think these companies are struggling and or looking to revalue their company. I think this is not a bad thing for our industry. This is probably one of the first tech downturns that we in Southeast Asia have had, and a lot of companies will come out of this stronger. For the companies uh, that are struggling, um, as well as some of them in our sovereign's portfolio, I think that the biggest thing that I look to tell them, and to focus on is that their identity, because uh, our CEOs, do have strong faith, and that their identity is in Christ and Christ alone. Like, they are not their company, so a failure of their startup does not equal a failure of their life. And I think that this is something that pretty much all founders, all investors, I think a lot of people in the marketplace, and in life in general, we go through, right? We go through these ups and downs of being on top of the world 1 minute, and then the next minute after that is thinking that we are uh, complete frauds. So I think that walking alongside the founders during this time is essential. Uh, I We do advise founders, and I know that the best VCs always tell their companies, if you don't feel like it's working, then quit while you're ahead, because quitting while in our marketplace, win at all costs culture may be seen as weak and may be seen as failing. I beg to differ. I think that sometimes that quitting can be the bravest and the most honorable thing that you can do. When you know that this is not working out, the ending well is the best way. I've seen some founders just say that this isn't working out. I'm just going to return some money, and that's great. And I've seen founders who end it well. No debt, nothing, they don't owe their employees 1 month, 2 month back salary. I think that we've all heard horror stories about these. And that is just, it's an honoring way for your stakeholders as well as for your team. So founders are like the most positive, like they are like the most optimistic people in the world. And this is why I love them. This is why I love to work with them. And I think that sometimes our job is to warn them that the worst outcome of the company is not zero. The worst outcome can be negative, that you end up in a bit of a hole where you owe some vendors, you owe a month of back salary. And our job is really to tell them that let's not get there. And so I think that a lot, that a lot of the best VCs out there really do give this warning to their founders.
It's quite a fair bit to unpack there. So allow me, maybe a minute to do that. I think, especially during this winter, as you speak about, there's just so many companies going through challenges and tests, but specifically those in companies who are founded by founders who are in the faith, right? I think it is my absolute earnest opinion, like when you guys are guiding them, that all these tests will become their testimonies at some point in time. That's one. I truly resonate with what you said about culture, prior to Sherman asking about challenges. And if I recall, if I'm not wrong on this, right, Amazon, Jeff Bezos actually invested in a company, the shoe company called Zappos, right? And it was just purely for culture. He paid like $1 billion for that company, which really underscores the fact that culture is just so important. When times get bad, it is really the culture, the strengthening, the camaraderie of the people that actually takes it through. And one thing to really underscore, Kevin, I think this is something that we all would agree upon. Ultimately, whether it's the founder primarily, but to have that Christ-centered identity, that's really going to help them to navigate. So that's, a bit of your sharing on challenges, when we are down in the valley and all that. And for every downs, there's always going to be ups. It's just at whatever point. When you guys are at the up, when I say you guys, like whether it's on sovereign side or even on all the portfolio companies that you guys are investing in, right? One part comes to mind. So when money is good times are rolling. Where do you guys, or how do you guys draw the line? When Christ himself says you can't serve God and mammon, how do you guys balance that lah? Or when is money too much money, or what do we do with that? So specifically share with us some key nuggets on the good times. How do you guys advise the portfolio companies, the founders, when it's good times rolling?
Oh, thanks, Mario. That's a great question. And you're right? It's like about serving, that you can't serve two masters. And I believe that the best companies, the best founders in good times don't. They really do that. When things are doing well, that's when you actually have the most influence, to do more. So we're a proud early investor into Grab. We're a proud early investor into Zendit. And we've seen these companies that when things are doing well, that they take that opportunity to have more influence, to do more, to bring on more drivers, to bring on more merchants and change more lives. We've seen the ability to get into different countries and help with transparencies in new marketplaces. So I think that uh, they're not looking to serve money, but they're looking to use it as a tool to do more and to have more positive kingdom influence.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for that. I mean, as you were speaking and as Mara was asking those questions, one thing that came to my mind, around that, and I think tough times also sometimes affects decisions that we make, right? I mean, it's easy to make decisions when everything is fun and dandy and you have an abundance of resources. But then when times get difficult, I think we've all seen our fair share of, people making decisions in a different way, especially entrepreneurs when, and I guess my question around this is that how do you see, and what's your approach, or what's, in investing, what is your approach in investing where, you find that the founders are kind of making decisions that might be legal, right? Because a lot of things are legal, might not be ethical because you're faith driven, right? So how do you cope with it? How do you deal with that? I mean, so far we talk a lot about supporting a supporting ecosystem, a supporting network being all great, but when it comes to the hard parts of it, could you share with us your thoughts and your approach regarding that?
No, thanks, Sherman. And I think as a fund with a fiduciary duty to to other investors, I mean, we 100% don't condone anything that's illegal, and I don't think any of my founders would do something like that. So that I that 100%. Maybe perhaps where the question is better focused in on is like you mentioned about the ethics, where things may be quote unquote gray. I don't want to say it's gray either. I think that I think it's tough. It's a very tough decision. Um, that when you participate in something like that, it is something that I think that you're participating in brokenness, and all I tell my founders is that should you be in that difficult situation, um, whatever you decide, just admit the sin, because what I don't want is that it becomes normal for you, and that you face the same situation and you're callous and you do it again and again and again. And just like any other sin that we all face, whether it's anger, impatience, all these things, like the moment that you start to make it normalized, that's when it starts to become difficult. So I'm not here to judge. I've been in that position. I know how hard it is with the temptations to move things along and make that small compromise. I think just admit it's a compromise and let's pray about it. Let's repent. Let's move on.
That is refreshing to hear. I mean, sometimes when things get normalized, Kevin, as you said that, right, the hearts get hardened and then it becomes such a normality. Thank you for sharing that. Let's go a little bit more personal. How do you first, bro? How do you balance business and family? And I would assume you're a hardworking man. You started the entire interview by talking about spirit of excellence, which is obviously something we all absolutely believe in. Yeah, how do you balance that? From an entrepreneur or even a partner in sovereigns yourself, balancing business and family. Speak a bit about that.
All right. I think that as tech entrepreneurs, we all use our calendars, right? If you don't put it into your calendar, it doesn't happen. And so one of the best tricks is that I just put it into my calendar. I have at least for 4 days out of the week, I have it blocked off where it's dinner with family. And so I will take that 6 p.m. to 6:30, 6:45 p.m. and spend it with my family. My kids are still young, so this is before they want to go out and hang out with their friends instead of me, right? So, but it's the same. It's same thing with my wife. It's something that in a marriage course told us was is that you need to just block off that time and protect it, or else I think we all know, right? Something urgent, something important is going to come up, and we're just going to we're going to fill in that time. So to really just put it on the calendar, block it off, and protect it, I think is the best thing I've ever done to uh, to to make my family, yeah, I mean, for that work-life balance, as you mentioned. And then, of course, like I work with the U.S., we go back to work, kind of right afterwards. And so sometimes I'll be up later at night taking calls, but I've protected that time.
Very nice. And quite clearly, Kevin, you're a great family man. Are there any, I mean, what are your kind of guiding rules? You said, okay, so number one, put in a calendar, but really when it comes to, I mean, I have to say you probably would have to travel given the nature of your work and stuff like that, and I know there are also a lot of people in our audiences right here that might face that situation. And I wanted just to ask you to share perhaps your handles that we can all learn from, or maybe share that experience of how would you manage time away from the family.
Yeah, no, that's tough. Um, and I think that, whatever, if you have WhatsApp video, right? FaceTime, if you are an Apple user, I guess, then these are wonderful things, right? And I think just it's great to be purposeful with the short time that you have. That obviously, maybe your 3-year-old doesn't want to get into a half-hour conversation with you over WhatsApp video, but you can really, really just take 30 seconds to say goodnight and to pray over them. And I think that's something that I believe that most of the people I know who are my age or older, they do remember that. They remember their parents and their grandparents praying over them, and doing it over video while you're traveling. I think it's just something worthwhile.
It is so true, guys. I've got two kids, right? So Chantel is sec 2, she's 14, coming to 14 years old. Elliot is coming to 12, so he's sitting for PSLE this year. And man, I mean, time just flies lah. So we really have got to be conscious and deliberate and intentional about spending time with them. Kevin, honestly, I tell you, bro, within just the snap of a finger, you see them growing up. So all those little moments that you take, trust me, when I mean you said it and I'm reinforcing it, they do remember it, in the past when the kids were growing up. And I actually wrote about these things in my book, my last book. I have something called the triple D, daddy daughter date. And she remembers it till today. And with Elliot, I had something called, we call it BFD, boys fun day. And then just I can't remember, like last week, my wife had something with my daughter, so I took my son out, just the two of us. It was really good lah, guys. So really to just encourage to continue doing that, however short it may be. Number one, scheduling it. Number two, having the intention, being really there. I think it's tremendously important lah. Yeah. Well, maybe to land the entire interview, Kevin, could you share with us? Maybe again, if I'm going to anchor it on business and family, could you share with us one principle or one lesson, one key lesson each in both the business side and the family side that you would like to share with our audience? Either number one, something that you feel the Lord is speaking to you during this season, or what you personally hold to be of paramount importance, or something that you have learned. One key takeaway on the business side and one on the family side, bro.
Wow. Okay. No pressure, right? No, thanks, Mario. I would say that perhaps on the business side, that so much goes into a business, an early stage startup, you know, the product market fit, right? The team, the timing, it the best founders understand that there is an element of, you can call it luck, you can call it fate, you can call it providence to it. And I believe that these are the best men and women that just have that humility. Of course, you need to have perseverance, grit, but the ones who really understand that, that there's something more, there's something out of my control that really, really got me here. Like, these are the best founders that I've had the pleasure to work with. So I think that from the business side, I do want everyone to realize that yes, we're supposed to put in our efforts, but there's a lot that's out of our control. And I think that when you look at people who have gotten to where they are, like, the best ones admit that in their story. From the family side, maybe I'll say that have a community, because it's really, really hard to do it alone. Um, even when times are good, there's you have people just to remind each other that, hey, look, when we're all together and stuff, that we forgot to pray for the food or something, right? You're gonna have someone who's just keeps the group centered. And then, of course, when times are difficult, this is where your friends, your community, um, it really just comes through for each other. So look to intentionally build that with, I guess, with people around you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we definitely will pick those nuggets up, and I hope that this pieces of wisdom would be an encouragement and also a learning point for our audiences out there. It certainly is for me, and I'm sure for you, Mario, as well. With this, we kind of come to the end of our session, this episode, and we want to give a big thank you to Kevin for joining us all the way from Jakarta, Indonesia. At this point, Jakarta, right, Kevin? Just want to see.
That's right.
Because
In Jakarta, come look me up.
So yeah, thanks for joining us again, Kevin. Really appreciate your time. And to our audiences out there, this is our last episode for this season. We'll take a short break, but I'm sure we will be back. So from us, my partner here, Mario, myself, and Gatekeepers Singapore, and Kevin here with us today, we want to say a big thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you soon.
And I think that this is something that pretty much all founders, all investors, I think a lot of people in the marketplace, and in life in general, we go through, right? We go through these ups and downs of being on top of the world 1 minute, and then the next minute after that is thinking that we are uh, complete frauds. So I think that walking alongside the founders during this time is essential. Uh, I We do advise founders, and I know that the best VCs always tell their companies, if you don't feel like it's working, then quit while you're ahead, because quitting while in our marketplace, win at all costs culture may be seen as weak and maybe seen as failing, I beg to differ. I think that sometimes that quitting can be the bravest and the most honorable thing that you can do. When you know that this is not working out, the ending well is the best way